Hi, welcome to our brand new recorded sessions with founders called Lessons from Digital Crafting. I'm Michelle Reed, and I'll be your host today, along with Hector Giner from Z1 Digital Studio. Hi, Hector. How are you?
Hey, hello everyone. Yeah, it's great to start these sessions, right?
Well, we have some additional faces joining us here. We're thrilled today to have Stuart Winchester, CEO and founder of Marble, and also Adi Sundar, CTO, who are joining us to talk a little bit about their product and a couple of key themes. I'll let you know that Marble is a New York-based startup that has become the first digital wallet and rewards platform for insurance. But to get to product launch in this competitive market, they had to take on some user experience research activities to inform the ideal experience. And we'll cover all of that in our conversation today. And if you're watching this live, we're looking forward to answering some of your questions. Hi, guys.
Hello. This is very exciting. This is great. The live element is getting my adrenaline going.
Oh, good. It's good. It's good to be excited early on in the day. Well, I want to start by asking you a little bit about Marble. Can you just open up and tell us, who is this product really for?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it because I think probably between me and Adi, I've had to tell that story more often because I talk to a lot of investors and things like that. But Adi can also keep me honest. But a brief bit of backstory is I used to work at an online mortgage company called Better.com, and in that I led the insurance vertical, selling people insurance when they were getting their mortgage. Very natural affinity, and I think in that time, it's like 2018, 2019. It was so clear that so much of people's personal finance was moving into digital hubs, banking with Chime or mortgages with Better, things like that, where it was really easy to see this whole slice of your life. Insurance, though, became clear was still living really in this distributed, paper-driven way where people had filing cabinets, in their car dashboard, things like that. And insurance is a really important part of your financial life that is up to 10% of your household budget, which is kind of nuts to say out loud, but it's true. And people had no real central control over it. So we think Marble's for everyone in that bucket who has any insurance or really anything they want to protect in their life. It could be older people who have many assets and loved ones and a complex structure, or it could be for 16, 17-year-olds who are just starting to drive and maybe are a little bit bummed out that their insurance company, is sending them paper documents. So it's a pretty broad-based appeal.
Mm-hmm. I heard you say you think that this is for some people, and that leads me to believe that you're always holding a hypothesis that we need to continue to test, perhaps. So maybe you could share more around how did you validate that there was something to be found in this space?
Yeah, this is a fun one. I think Adi and I will probably both want to weigh on it, but I'll get us started. So I was, when I started to work on Marble, it was sort of a couple kernels of an idea, and what I just sort of said about Wallet was one of them, and it was a big foundational piece. But fortunately, I'm not a product person by trade. I had learned the hard way that we had to test a lot of that first. So hired a user researcher who Adi has met as well. She's worked with us ad hoc and over time. We did almost a year's worth of research. I mean, maybe 9 months interviewing people, like 1,000-person surveys, moderated, unmoderated tests to understand how people were working with their insurance or trying to manage their insurance. Then, and I'll throw it to Adi here. Then Adi came aboard, and he basically repeated it all with my, which we wanted to do, and doing again this deep dive into how people manage or control their insurance. And Adi had his own set of learnings from that.
With a product mindset, right, Adi?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the tough things, especially when you're creating something that's sort of net new in an industry, is you're talking to a lot of users and a lot of potential users that have a significantly different mental model from what you're trying to build, right? There was no concept of a insurance wallet in the industry. And so when we approached users and started asking them questions, we had to be really careful about making sure just asking them about their current situation and how they think about insurance, what their mental model is for their assets and how they organize this entire, class of information for their entire household. And so we started doing that. We started understanding what are the big pain points, what are the ideas that we're trying to validate. And we, sort of early on, we thought we were going to solve for payments. And then quickly we pivoted away from that. We realized payments was not a big pain point for users. They do a lot of auto pay, it's through their credit card. The piece that was a pain point was the understanding of their insurance coverages, if they're covered enough or not covered at all. And then also organizing it all in one place. People have 4 or 5 different insurance policies per household, but they don't even know where they are. They don't know where to get that information, like Stuart was saying. And so that's sort of early on, we're evaluating what is the pain point and what are we trying to solve.
Was there anything that was helpful in the form of tools or programs to help you collect and organize all this information?
We used a couple of different things to start, and I'm trying to remember what Adi also used, but I'll start. So we used Pollfish for a lot of like large survey, broad-based survey, and then it's not really a tool, but in terms of finding survey respondents or people we could use or interview before we had a product, I used Craigslist, and I actually got banned from Craigslist because it's not really a preferred use of Craigslist. But I would offer people gift cards to hop on the phone with me. We did I think a dozen interviews that way, and recorded them. I'm back on Craigslist now. We've reconciled, and I'm now able to sell furniture. But that was the other way we did it. And then Adi, I'm trying to remember some of the other tools we've used. And are even using today because it's been a continuous practice for us.
I'm forgetting it used to be called userinterview.com. I think they have a different name now. We use them as well. It's really easy to sort of organize all the learnings in there. And there's a few other tools that our UI UX team and research team is using currently. They're not coming to mind right away, but
what is it? Okay, I'm gonna think about it as we talk, and I'll blurt it out.
Well, as a reminder for everybody who's listening, Z1 Digital Studio is really focused on a 0 to 1 approach. And our teams kicked off a multi-milestone approach to bringing this product to life. Now, I often find that the early founders who have the best collaborations with our team have a good sense, at least, of the market that they want to play in and the users that they want to solve problems for. Sometimes folks come to the studio and they have not done the depth of early research that you have. So I want to hear from Hector. Share a little bit more from the studio's perspective around some typical activities that we can support or run these founders through if they haven't done a deep dive just yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you nailed it, highlighting that sometimes the people like Stuart and Adi, they come to us with a clear understanding on what they're trying to solve, right? And that's the final step forward and part of the activities that we do across the discovery phases and design phases overall, right? So I think the best way to see this part of the process is thinking about 2 phases or 2 spaces that I usually refer to as the opportunity space and the solution space, right? So basically what we're trying to guide our clients is through the 2 phases where you are firstly trying to understand what you trying to build in the future, but also which problems or which opportunities you are trying to capture, right? To catch and to solve if there are a problem, right? And that's usually the opportunity space. That's more about talking, discovering and met needs. Finally, I'm a big fan of jobs to be done, right? And thinking about what they're trying to achieve with different tools or I mean, the correct term probably, or the most used term is what products they hired for that job, right? So that's more on the opportunity space, thinking about, wider on just thinking about pains, opportunities, and talking with people around those insights and the main risks that we are facing in that initial stage of the process is around customer value that Adi referred to. Also tech feasibility in some way, because sometimes you talk with people that you rapidly discover that maybe it's nothing feasible, at least in the first phase of the product, and obviously business feasibility or viability, right? Because I mean, you have to understand if in that opportunity there is something, right? And the second part of the research is okay, now that we have the insights, I mean, we like to also propose to change the mindset. And now that we have all the information, all the opportunity in some way, like define or outline to move to the solution space, because that's a very common problem. And I think it would be great to hear from Stuart and Adi, like how to avoid that problem that suddenly when we discover something, or we think that we have discovered something, is like jumping super rapidly into propose a solution, right? Before understanding properly what we're trying to solve, right? So I think it's very important to, in some way, define that line, right? Like, okay, we are in the opportunity space. We're still understanding. We're still diverging. We're still trying to connect dots. Or are we jumping into the solution space? We have selected something, like the case that the Stuart was mentioning about, okay, organizing. It's like, okay, that could be an opportunity. So now let's think how we're solving that. And that's still on paper, whiteboards, or draft documents. That's not designing yet, right? But even for the discovery or the research phase, it's a very good exercise to have both mindsets and to do the proper work. Or if we want to summarize in two terms, I would use understanding and defining, right? Those are the two ways that you try to do in order to move through the research phase.
Adi and Stuart, does that resonate with you?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think particularly what Hector said about the moving, anyone who watches this or is thinking about being a founder or even an early stakeholder at a startup or an early product within a bigger company, like kind of trying to have some self-knowledge of where you sit in that matrix of, basically how geared you might be towards jumping towards the solution space. I think one thing that Adi and I have developed one thing that Adi and I benefited from is that I know about myself that I like to solution. I'm like kind of the worst nightmare for many product technology people, and that I know just enough about technology to sort of credibly throw solutions out there, but they're often either wrong or miss part of the solution. But I kind of know that about myself, and I think Adi and I have a healthy balance where I can kind of say, hey, I'm thinking about this, but I'm coming to you before I bring it to a wider team, or I throw it to an engineer or anything like that, because I'm not even sure we should be having this conversation right now, or I'm not even sure we've sort of earned the right to move out into that stage. So for anyone who's thinking about it, finding that counterweight, who you can trust, and also making sure you kind of know where you sit on that axis of like product for solution, because self-awareness is important in anything, and especially if you're going to start to invest real dollars into engineering.
How do you guys balance thinking and researching with crafting and doing? Because I can imagine that you can continue researching forever, but at some point you have to start crafting. When is that moment?
I've been very lucky to be able to work with Z1 for almost 6-7 years now. And I think one good thing about having a talented and really experienced team is they're able to sort of let we have enough research here. We have a really strong understanding of what we're trying to solve. Let's start building and start validating, right? Like you said, Michelle, we could spend years validating the perfect solution, validating every single assumption we have, and never build. And really, until we put that product out into the market, it's all hypothetical. Whatever research you do, whatever questions you ask, you're not really able to really validate it until you build a product, put that in front of real users, and start to see how they're reacting to it, and if that's really solving the problem that you set out to solve. The when, I think, it's a hard question to really ask yourself. But for us, it was when we realized we really understood. We started off saying that payments might be the solution we're solving, but after doing a lot of research and understanding that there's no other competitor that's really able to put all your insurance policies and everything in one place, we understood that organizational piece was something that we wanted to go out and tackle, and we knew there was no strong competitor out there, and that we could, through the help with Z1 and the design team there, start to build a first-in-class experience for our users, and that's when we started.
So that's interesting, because I was going to drill down on, you're talking about competitors.
Go.
And maybe go a little bit further in there around, this is a market that has loads of incumbents in different forms and fashions. How do you think about approaching a market like this? I'll
jump on that, and I will just briefly add to Adi's answer. make sure you also have someone who is doing forecasting and modeling, because when you make that switch can also be determined by when you need to see something in market to make money or to raise more money. So that's always like the third part of the triangle too, is like, is the money part, which I think we've done a reasonably good job at balancing that as well. But insurance incumbents get a bad rap, Michelle. Like, I think, or to put it another way, I think a lot of startup insurance companies have made a lot of savvy PR moves, sort of punching up against the incumbents. Hey, they have all these advertisements at the Super Bowl. Their technology is bad. No one really likes their insurance company, so it's kind of easy pickings. We were kind of coming in at an angle, because we weren't selling our own insurance. So we weren't directly trying to punch them in the face in any way. And in fact, we wanted them to kind of take a long look at us, because maybe there's ways that we could partner with those incumbents too. So the way we thought about it was like really trying to understand our users' sentiments towards the large incumbents, and also look very carefully at the technology stack that they were built on. Because we wanted to be able to kind of play with that stack if it ever came to it, and also speak credibly to the insurance carriers and say, we think we understand your problems. That being said, like, you kind of do have to play opposition a little bit and say, we move a little faster, our brand's a little, more fun, our tech is a little bit better. And I think the incumbents kind of get that too. They've got bigger problems to worry about. They don't mind if we take a little tweak at them every now and then because we have a flashier app or whatever. So I guess that the headline is you want to come in like pretty respectfully, I think, because they're successful 100-year-old businesses. That being said, I think you got to take your shots where you can against them, because it's a competitive market and they're easy to pick at.
Hector, did you have a thought on this subject in this category or in others?
Yeah, finally, I mean, like, it's something actually that I really like reading through different cases and success stories and also failures, right? So I think it's like business design 101, right? Like, thinking about, because it's very rare. I mean, like, I would say that it's very rare to go to a market. Everyone talks about the blue ocean strategy, but it's very weird to find a real blue ocean nowadays, right? There is always, and actually, I mean, I really like when talking with founders and they see competitors sometimes like a validation of their idea instead of a threat, right? So in this case, if it's not a startup, right, that it will be that case, your competitor is like running fast like you, and that it's more an incumbent. I like the idea of thinking in two ways, and probably Stuart is more expert than me for sure in that. But in some way, we did the same at Z1, because there are like super big services companies out there, right? So the thing is like having like a very sharp positioning on markets that they are not serving properly, because it's very common that big companies are not serving specific niches, specific clients, and that. I mean, I remember, I don't know who was, I think it was Reid Hoffman or someone famous in the startup scene talking about the $1 billion business that are under unserved clients from Salesforce, right? You can go directly to all case studies of people asking Salesforce for specific things that they don't do that you could do, right? And so the things like all these big companies, they are moving markets, but also they are maybe serving or not serving properly at some point. So I like the idea from the Jess Stuart share about not thinking about comparing directly. It's more about partnering as well. Like they see you as like a small rat, respectfully, right? Like small rat that is not a problem for them. They're dinosaurs, right? And that you can even augment their service. Like, oh, it would be nice if these guys could be the expert for Y service, right? And from there learn a lot, right? Because it's very important to, like to also, it's a weird feeling because you have to be ambitious enough to think that you can disrupt a market, but also you have to be humble in order to not going super fast or making assumptions that can put your business in risk, right? Am I wrong, Stuart? I'm following.
No, I totally agree. I mean, there's this like little like anecdote I always think about this, which is like Lemonade, who made a lot of, they raised a lot of money. They're very, accomplished executive team, but they made a lot of waves by going like right at the carriers, the big incumbents when they launched. And they, they're Lemonade on their own, very successful company. But I remember, I think it was like 2018 again, 2019, they launched some commercial, or State Farm launched a commercial that was like making fun of the robots, the robot insurance companies, kind of like tweaking the insurtechs, and specifically Lemonade, who notably has an AI bot. And Lemonade turned around and did something really cute, and they like ran State Farm's ad on YouTube ads as like, hey, our biggest, this big company is actually basically making an ad for us because they're so worried about us. And I think what's always funny about that is that like you compare the relative impact of those two tactics. State Farm's ad aired during the NBA playoffs. Probably had like 55 million people saw that ad run multiple times. If you look at the Lemonade YouTube ad, I think it has like 3,000 views. So it's like you're just talking about like 2 orders of magnitude different here in terms of like, so it's fine to tweak, it's fine to battle, but you have to have some humility about the scale of these operations, because you're going to you could risk looking a little bit silly if you're like, we're going to change this, and you're talking like a 300-year-old brand with everyone who has name recognition across the entire U.S. Because the scale, you have to just be you have to be inspired by scale and feel motivated to fight it, but you also have to know kind of like, hey, that giant is really big and he's going to crush us.
Yeah, that reminds me to something that it's in some way like an inside joke or something that we see a lot of times. Probably Adi will relate to that. We have from clients a lot of times, like, limited budget, early stage company and they say things like, oh, I want the main feed to be like Instagram, right? It's like, man, I mean, like, probably Instagram is I personally think that I haven't seen any performance like Instagram main feed, right? Or it was very common when Airbnb was famous, like, yeah, we want something like Airbnb, right? Or look how they're doing that, right? It's like, yeah, probably with 50 developers only for that form, right? So the things like, yeah, I mean, you have to be ambitious, but also you have to understand where you are, right? And where you want to go, right? In order to, at the end of the day, like to make things that are feasible, right?
Yeah, and again, what's the money? Like, what do you have? Like, you could burn forever amounts of money just trying to create the Airbnb shopping marketplace if you are a seed stage company. But the best outcome you might have is that users are like, that looks kind of like Airbnb, but the rest of the product does nothing for me. And then you've just, you've done nothing, right? So
exactly.
And I mean, Adi and I, I think have done and our whole team, who's all like tremendous, has all adopted this sort of ethos of like, there's stuff we're going to do by hand because you got to have constraints.
When we move beyond planning for all these changes and elements in user experience and grabbing an edge, but not being too ambitious, when it comes to the technical aspect, the implementation, Adi, I think I heard you say one time that well-crafted UI and UX can make up for a duct-taped backend and ops solution. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of what Stuart was just touching on, and that we like to do things by hand when we can. We could have spent a full year automating our entire backend to pull the data sets and information that we needed. But we knew that, that was going to burn a lot of time. And so we needed to build a really strong user experience on the front end and communicate effectively to users and set the right expectations to our users through a delightful UI UX, so that we could have a more manual backend, a more manual process in the backend, and allow us to go to market without the perfect solution. And that was really valuable for us. We built our own sort of with Z1, our own, scraping tool that went out and pulled information from insurance websites. And we did that because we didn't want to rely on external vendors, and we didn't want to build a perfect solution yet. But we had to pair that with a really strong UI, because when there were moments when a user might have to wait an extra 24 hours for their policy to get synced or see the data they need to see, we need to tell them, hey, hang tight, we'll let you know when this policy is ready for you to view. And that UI UX and communicating that to users allows us to say, you know what, we're going to go to market now instead of waiting for this to sync instantly. And I think that was really important. And a lot of that is really doing that in a delightful way and having moments of delight within the platform that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to refer to, I mean, it's in a different space, but it's related in some way, that there is a service design principle that is a service must be agnostic from the internal organization, right? So you don't have to expose your problems to the client, and it's good to define an interface, even if it's another service. But in this case in particular, if we think about the actual interface, it's a perfect line to define what is missing internally and what you're doing, things that are done at scale, but in some way you're delivering the service. And I agree that sometimes the right copy, the right delight moment in the interface, and that can even make the product to be more I don't know, more approachable, more human, and to make people to keep engaged with the team behind it, right?
It's like giving trust signals to the user on the front end. Like, this is legitimate. We've invested in this. We speak and we display our product offering in a way that's credible and relatable. And also, one piece of like kind of doing more of the handmade stuff on the back end is like, I think our back end processes, our back end, and this is more of Adi's world, but I think our back end technology and architecture has benefited from the fact that a lot of the stuff that the technology now does, we started doing by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to learn a lot about like how insurance companies deliver data, how people want to shop for insurance, and how they want to see quotes. And there was the benefit that we didn't spend a lot of time or money building it, but there's also the benefit that we didn't spend a lot of time fixing it. We kind of we had some short-term pain, and we have some, one of our earliest teammates Tiffany has done a lot of like handmade work over time. But the benefit is one, she's now a product manager, and she's a heck of a one. And two, it's built like a great back end where it's highly flexible and we can move a lot faster, and you build velocity because we have some sort of heartburn from the first time we did it by hand.
Yeah, that's pure empirism, I would say, right? Like working from reality to the abstract concepts, right? And I really think that's a way we should do everything in life, right? Like actually, there is a quote, I think it's from Lean or Kanban, but well, this type of methodology from constant improvement, that is, there is no innovation made in the desk, right? You have to be in the workplace. You have to be close to your clients, right? And I think this is a very, common thing that you can read in Medium or any post about the startups, like be close to your clients, be close to your business. But actually, it's the only way, right? Like to really know what you're solving, because if not, you can define an overkill solution, right? And that's never a good idea in an early stage.
We call that a little bit of Wizard of Ozing, where it looks wonderful to users on the front side, and you pull back the curtain, and there you two are like beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, doing it on your own.
It's not actually almost everything in internet like that. I mean, because I'm starting to believe that it's like that. Like
it's all like that, man. It's
the best setup that a YouTuber has. Like maybe you move the camera and everything is fake, or
but even the AI stuff,
Exactly.
There's a bunch of English majors like me out there writing all the solutions for everybody, and it just takes forever.
Gosh. Yeah. Well, this is a couple of years in a journey to thinking, measuring, preparing, and then you open the doors to having some real users on board. So now, what are some of the things that you're doing to measure if it's working?
Yeah, this is something we talk about daily, and measurement is its own sort of product and feature set, because you can spend tons of time installing more measurement tools and breaking them down. But the main things for us that we look at every day at 11 a.m. Eastern are how many people are you signing up? What does it cost to get us to sign someone up? How many people, when they do sign up, are adding their insurance to the wallet? So after they make an account, are we earning that trust and demonstrating the value that people do? And we see about 50% of people are adding their insurance, which is, for a pretty high friction process, we're extremely proud of that number. And then one layer down, we do NPS, we do CSAT, we do sort of satisfaction scores, and And I'm trying to think, retention, I guess, is the last big thing that we do look at. So month over month, are people staying with us? And again, we're very happy with that. I think we always want to keep improving it because insurance is boring and we're always going to be running uphill. But we already have like a 20 to 30%, month over month return rate. And then Adi, I mean, on the pure engineering and product side, I'm sure you have a whole other suite of things that you look at.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing there. I think it's important for you to understand the industry that you're working in and sort of have a good benchmark based off of that. When we started, we could have said that we want engagement numbers like a social media app might have, but obviously that's not the case. People do not want to interact with their insurance on a daily basis. So we then started tracking towards more things that are insurance related. So are they logging in around renewal to come into Marble to be the place of truth to understand if they're getting the best rate? So that started becoming more important for us than is somebody logging on every week or every day. So now we're tracking that. We're also tracking how often people come on to add their renewal. So are they just adding their policy the first time, or are they coming back on to add their policy when it renews? So those are really important, I would say, industry specific tools that we're using to make sure that users are happy with their experience.
That's another interesting conversation, right? Like how to define the right metrics, right? Recently in the startup industry has been widely used the concept of the North Star metric, right? Like having a real metric that is the most important one, right? So yeah, in this case, I mean, you highlighted that, right? Like for this specific product, I mean, maybe other metrics from other industries are not applicable because I would say, like, fortunately, we are not reviewing our policies every single day, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's why it's a little different. But I can tackle this question on LinkedIn.
Third-party tools that you might be using.
Yeah, and this is through a recommendation through Z1. We're using a tool called Segment, which basically tracks all events that happen on the platform. And through Segment, we can then connect those events and that data that comes into a Segment to other third-party tools. So Amplitude is one, which is very similar to Mixpanel. I would recommend either one. And we also use Customer.io for email. And then we're also connected to Metabase for anyone on the team to really plug into our database to go pull reports and see any of the data that's in our backend. So those are the three, I would say, most important analytics-driven tools that we use.
Okay, great.
Well, in addition to having some validation from your users and tracking some metrics, it's nice to have validation that you've built a great product from peers. And I understand there was a nomination for a UX Design Award for this beautiful product. So congrats to both teams.
Yeah, and
very exciting.
In the insurance tech industry, that's also.
I know.
Yeah,
it feels like. I was like, I mean, I'm the biggest believer ever in our product, but I was like, man, for insurance to be in this consideration is like a testament to how much both teams have done, and then it's kind of motivation to keep it going because it feels like we already have a huge lead on anyone else that could be considered doing this.
Yeah, something I would like to add on this because I feel very proud of our team and how we do everything related to this type of design practices, from crafting them to also how to tell the story and all our stuff. But I think it's very important. I mean, probably a lot of people assume that it is how it is, but I really think, and in some way in the conversation we have highlighted that, but how important design is for any industry, right? And how still help. And I see a lot of misunderstanding on what design is sometimes, because some people say like, oh, TikTok has barely design, right? It's like, no, actually it's pre-designing all the interactions and all the layouts and that, because maybe design sometimes is like removed from the front of what you're doing because you want the content to be the first thing, right? But it's very important to see like how, for example, when you want to build trust with clients, how important is to the design to convey that, right? Because actually the opposite sometimes, if the design is not at a good level, I mean, and it's related to some important things of life, you probably will not trust that platform, right? So having also a nomination from external peers, I mean, it's a validation that even in an industry that you could assume that solving a problem is the only important thing. It's a validation that, well, doing that extra effort into the details is also a good thing, right?
Well, congrats again. We could carry on, I'm sure, many lessons, and I'd love to check in a couple years from now and see how you would change things looking back. But perhaps for today, we'll pause there. Stuart and Adi, if anybody wants to learn more about Marble or even about you two as leaders in this space, how can they find out more?
Yeah, we're at marblepay.com. As Adi said, we did a lot of research about payments, but not before we bought the domain. So also look out for a new domain name in the next couple months here. But we're at marblepay.com. We're at Join Marble on Twitter. I also have a website, shwinchester.com, also courtesy of Z1. They do great work. I'm a big fan. Hector was my product manager on that one and kept me very constrained after I sent some real big wish list items on the design there. So sorry about that. And you can find me on Twitter, where I'm usually posting about New York Transit and not about insurance. And I'll throw it to Adi, who, I will spoil alert, is posting about Houston sports.
Yeah. If you go to my Twitter, I'm usually only posting about Houston sports and Betis. So I post about Betis.
Like Spanish soccer as well.
Yeah. You can also find me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, feel free. I'm happy to help out on the product or technology side. And big endorsement for Z1. They've been part of my journey as an entrepreneur for 7 years, and I would not be where I am today without the support of Hector and the entire team there. So thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Well, Stuart and Adi, it is a delight to have you in our community of partners and also friends. So thank you so much for joining us today. And to everybody listening, I hope that you got a couple nuggets of gold out of these lessons. And to learn more about Z1 Studio, you can reach out to us as well. And we chat about how we can make some of your dreams come true in product. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.